Homework 1-6, the ACT stuff. We got on this 55. I went with the back 6. A lot of the ones the kids just skip because you haven't seen it. That's the reality of it. You haven't seen it or it's difficult. Usually the ones towards the end are somewhat difficult, but they put some old stuff in here too. What are the real numbers of x that make the expression the fourth root of x to the 12th equals x cubed true? Well, pretty much everything. You might be thinking maybe I can't do a negative, but if I put like a -2 in there and raise it to the 12th, the even power makes it positive. And by the way, you learn, it's on your formula quizzes, x to the p over r is x to the p over r. So this guy right here simplifies to x to 12 over 4. It's x cubed. Everything. It's all real numbers. So that's that. Now 56 is a trig function, but it's not that bad of a trig function. And hold on, let me pause this. Somebody's here early. All right, so I'm back. Had an interruption there. All right, so 56 I'm going to help you with a little bit because you haven't graphed sine and you won't have graphed it by the time you've actually taken the ACT unless you take pre-calculus your senior year, and even then you still won't have seen sine by the time you actually have done it. So anyways, I fired up my TI-84. It's in default mode radian, and I'm just typing in sine of x so I can see what she looks like. And here's sine of x. Notice she is centered at the origin. I know it's a little blurry because I'm zoomed out, but she's centered at the origin. Sine x is centered at the origin. So what's happened here is we've had a shift happen. I don't know if you can see that or not. We've had a horizontal shift happen. There is no vertical shift because you can kind of see at this point right here where it moved to, right there, it didn't go up or down. So there's been a horizontal shift and there's been no vertical shift. The way they wrote this thing out, they used A to be the horizontal and B to be the vertical. All right, so let's see what's true here. The functions have the same maximum value. Which of the following statements about the values of A and B is true? They're saying A is less than 0 and B is 0. And by the way, anything that says anything other than B being 0 is wrong. Because there was no vertical shift. There isn't one. It didn't go up or down, so it's just F. So actually that one wasn't too hard. You just had to realize because of placement what you're dealing with. Which of the following number line graph shows a solution set to the inequality absolute value of x minus 5 is less than -1? 9 in 10 kids will miss this question, which you shouldn't even be possible because 5 choices. You ought to be 1 in 5 gets it right just by random guessing. But they will not do the math and they will not think. This is the absolute value of something. All right? And it must be positive. You take the absolute value of -3, you get 3. You take the absolute value of -12, you get 12. See how they'd say it's that? It's kind of an issue. Well, actually, it's an inequality, isn't it? It is actually an inequality. But even doing something simple, like on a TI-84, which you have access to, throw x minus 5, so the value x minus 5 in y1, -1 in y2. There's no solutions. It's the empty set. Nothing. And maybe you've never seen anybody say that is no solution, but no solution is what's called an empty set. All right, 58. The sides of an acute triangle are 14, 18, and 20 centimeters respectively, which the following equations, when solved for theta, gives the measure of the smallest angle of the triangle. And they give you two formulas here. They give you law of sines and they give you law of cosines. So let's see what we got here. It's an acute triangle. Sides are 14, 18, and 20 respectively. And I don't know how much you remember about geometry, but you require an angle side pair to use law of sines. You just can't do it. And they want the smallest angle of this triangle. The smallest angle of this triangle would be opposite of the smallest side. Right there, the smallest angle is opposite of the smallest side. That's called hinge theorem in geometry. Bigger the side, bigger the angle. And you can't use law of sines because what you would do is you'd say sine of theta is to 14 as sine of something is maybe to 18. You have two unknowns. You can't use it. It's got to be law of cosines. So in law of cosines, they've got it right here. We would call this little c, and this would be big C. And the other guys would be A and B, and it doesn't matter which one's which. But we just plug in. So this is a side, by the way. That's an angle because it's an argument of cosine. You would say 14 squared equals 18 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 18 times 20 times the cosine of theta, because that's what angle C is. It's called theta. So it's actually a really easy problem. You just plug in the formula and go with it. If you understand law of cosines, which was a geometry standard, it takes you 5 seconds to do it. If you didn't understand law of cosines, well, I don't know what you're doing in Algebra 2. For all values of x where the expression is defined 3 over x minus 5 divided by 1 minus 2 over x minus 5, what is this thing equal to? The technique here, this is what we call a nested fraction. And what we do is we multiply every term by the LCD. This got removed from Algebra 2 standards, but it is still an ACT standard. So if I distribute to this guy, the x minus 5s cancel each other out. Then I distribute down to that guy. 1 times x minus 5 is x minus 5. Then I distribute to that guy, and the x minus 5s cancel out. And I'm left with 3 over x minus 7 when everything is said and done. It's not a hard process. And the last of these ACT questions, Mr. Martin wants to plant 7 trees evenly spaced along a straight fence 300 feet long, with one of the trees at each end of the fence. About how many feet apart should he plant the trees? I hope it's 60, but I'm pretty tired. So you got a tree here, another tree there, and that means there's going to be 5 trees in between. 1, 2, 3. Oh, see, I got my 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How far apart are they? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blanks. There you go. They're 50 feet apart. Most people choose 60. They do 300 divided by 5. They don't think about how many spaces there are. And there were 6 spaces. So it's actually 300 over 6. You're going to see a lot of people who simply do another one common mistake. Is kids who just see numbers and play with the numbers they see. They do 300 over 7. And they convert that to the nearest whole number they see, which I'm so tired I'm not even sure what it is. It's probably 43. But it's that one. It's 50 all day long. And that was the ACT.